Imagine moving to a new house, full of expectations and dreams. Everything seems perfect at first, but slowly, something strange begins to happen. That's exactly what happened to a family in Westfield, New Jersey, in 2014. They were excited about their new life. The house was spacious, with a huge backyard and a quiet neighborhood. It seemed like the ideal place to build happy memories. However, what they didn't know was that this house held an unsettling secret. A few weeks after moving in, the family started receiving anonymous letters. These weren't ordinary notes or commercial correspondence. They were threatening messages, written by someone who seemed to know everything about them. The sender signed the letters as the Watcher. But who was this mysterious person? Or better yet, this mysterious entity that seemed to be watching them day and night? The first letters arrived by mail. When they opened the envelope, the family was stunned. The text was direct and intimidating, as if the author had been observing every move they made inside their own home. At first, the family thought it might be some kind of cruel prank. Maybe a jealous neighbor or someone unhappy about the arrival of new residents. But over time, the situation became more serious. The letters kept coming, each one more detailed and disturbing than the last. The Watcher seemed to always be one step ahead, anticipating the family's moves before they even made them. Moreover, there was something peculiar about the messages. They contained no grammatical errors or typos. They seemed to be written by someone intelligent and calculating, someone who wanted to instill fear but in a controlled way. The family tried to ignore the letters, thinking that if they didn't give attention to the matter, the problem would go away. But the more they tried to forget, the more frequently the messages appeared in the mailbox. The atmosphere in the house began to change. What was once a cozy home now seemed to carry a heavy, almost suffocating vibe. Family members began to feel like they were being watched all the time. Even small things in their daily routine became a source of paranoia. If someone left a light on at night, they already imagined the Watcher was noting it down. If they left the house, they felt like they were being followed. Desperate, they decided to seek help. They told the story to close friends and even considered calling the police. However, without concrete evidence or clues about who the author of the letters was, little could be done. The feeling of helplessness took over the family. How do you face an invisible enemy? Someone who knows everything about you but never shows their face? It was like fighting against a shadow. Despite the growing fear, the family decided not to abandon the house. They wanted to find out who was behind these threats. But as the days passed, they realized that the mystery was only just beginning. With the passing weeks, the Watcher's letters began to change. They were no longer just generic messages about the family's routine. Now, he mentioned intimate details like the names of the household members and even small conversations that had taken place inside the house. It was as if the Watcher was really present, hiding somewhere, listening to every word whispered between them. The question that wouldn't leave everyone's mind was, how was this possible? The mother of the family, a strong and determined woman, began losing sleep. She started avoiding sitting near the windows, afraid someone might be outside, watching. Every noise at night made her heart race. The father, on the other hand, tried to stay calm. He kept repeating to himself and the children that this was just a cruel joke. But deep down, he was scared too. How could you explain such precision in the information sent by the sender? The children, teenagers at the time, were the most affected. They stopped inviting friends over, fearing something might happen. Even the simple act of using their phones seemed dangerous, as if the Watcher could intercept their conversations. One day, one of the letters brought something even more disturbing. In it, the Watcher mentioned a specific object the family kept in the living room, an old framed photograph, a gift from a distant relative. "I know the sentimental value of this photograph," the letter said. "But do you know what lies behind it?" This sentence left everyone frozen. How could someone know so much about something so personal? From that moment on, the family decided to investigate on their own. They searched the house for hidden cameras or microphones. They even hired a residential security expert, but nothing was found. The Watcher seemed to be everywhere and, at the same time, nowhere. It was impossible to trace his origin. The letters kept coming, always by mail, without any marks indicating who sent them. In one of the following messages, he made an even scarier statement. "You can search, but you'll never find me. I am part of this house now." This sentence echoed in everyone's minds for days. The idea that the Watcher was more than just a person began to gain traction. Some family members started questioning whether he was human or something supernatural. Could it be that the house had a dark history they were unaware of? Determined to uncover the truth, they decided to research the property's history. They visited public archives, spoke with former residents of the area, and even consulted a local historian. To everyone's surprise, they discovered that the house had a strange reputation. Previous owners reported inexplicable events, like doors opening by themselves and voices heard during the night. However, no one ever mentioned threatening letters. Despite these revelations, the family couldn't find any concrete proof of who the Watcher was. The mystery only grew, and fear took over every corner of the house. It was then that they noticed something even more concerning. The letters were becoming more frequent. From once a week, they now arrived almost every day. It seemed like the Watcher was losing patience or planning something bigger. With the letters becoming increasingly frequent, the family began to notice that the Watcher wasn't just interested in scaring them. He seemed to be trying to say something, or maybe hide something. One of the messages brought an enigmatic phrase. "The past never sleeps. It waits." These words echoed in everyone's minds. Was there something in the house's history that they still hadn't uncovered? Determined to find answers, the family decided to explore the basement, a place they had avoided until then. It was dark, damp, and full of dusty boxes left by previous owners. It seemed like the perfect setting to hide secrets. While rummaging through the boxes, they found old documents, faded photographs, and even some diaries. One of these diaries belonged to a woman who had lived in the house decades earlier. Its pages were filled with confusing notes and strange drawings. In one entry, the woman wrote about someone she called the Shadow. She said this presence watched her constantly, especially at night, and that she felt like she was being observed even within her dreams. The resemblance between the woman's accounts and the family's current experiences was striking. Had the Watcher been there before? And if so, why had he returned now? In addition to the diaries, they also found a small locked chest. After much effort, they managed to open it. Inside, there were unusual objects. A rusty key, a broken pendant necklace, and a yellowed envelope aged by time. On the envelope, a single handwritten sentence read, "Do not turn on the lights." This message made everyone even more apprehensive. Why would someone say something like that? And what would happen if the lights were turned on? Curious and fearful, they decided to test the message. One night, after everyone went to bed, they left all the lights in the house off. It was then that they noticed something strange. The noises they usually heard during the night completely stopped. However, when they turned the lights back on the following morning, they noticed something even more disturbing. All the curtains in the house were closed, even though they had been left open the night before. This incident made it clear that something or someone was manipulating the environment around them. But who, or what? Theories began to emerge, ranging from human intruders to supernatural forces. To try to control the situation, the family decided to install security cameras. They wanted to record any strange movements inside or outside the house. However, the cameras never captured anything suspicious. Strangely, the recordings only showed normal scenes. The silent house during the night, family members coming and going. It was as if the Watcher knew exactly where and when to stay out of the camera's reach. Despite this, the letters kept coming, each one more threatening than the last. In one of them, the Watcher wrote, "You're playing with fire. Some secrets are not meant to be uncovered." The family was divided between continuing the investigation or simply abandoning everything and moving out. But deep down, they knew that running away wouldn't solve the problem. The Watcher seemed to be tied to the house in some way, and perhaps to them as well. With the nerves on edge, the family decided to seek professional help. They hired a private investigator, someone experienced in unusual and difficult cases. The investigator, a man named Thomas, was known for his methodical and meticulous approach. He listened carefully to all the details of the case, examined the letters, and even spent a few nights in the house to personally observe what was happening. During his stay, Thomas noticed something peculiar. Whenever the lights were turned off, he felt a strange presence in the air, as if something invisible was there, watching every move. He also noticed that when the lights were turned back on, small objects would change places. A cup that had been left on the table was now in the sink. A book that had been left open was now closed. Despite these discoveries, Thomas couldn't find any concrete proof of who or what was causing these phenomena. He suggested that the family continue documenting everything but warned that they might never uncover the full truth. Meanwhile, the Watcher's letters began mentioning Thomas directly. In one of them, he wrote, "You brought a hunter to find me? He will never see me." This message left everyone even more apprehensive. Determined not to give up, the family decided to explore another aspect of the mystery: the neighbors. Perhaps someone in the area knew something about the house's history or had seen something suspicious. They began discreetly talking to nearby residents. Some people confirmed that the house had a reputation for being haunted, but no one knew exactly why. Others said that former owners used to avoid talking about the place. An elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for decades revealed something intriguing. She said that years ago, a woman who lived in the house had mysteriously disappeared. No one ever found out what happened to her. This disappearance coincided with the accounts found in the diaries in the basement. Could the woman mentioned by the neighbor be the same one who wrote about the shadow? And if so, what was her connection to the Watcher? Motivated by this new information, the family decided to return to the basement to look for more clues. This time, they found a box hidden behind a false wall. Inside, there was a collection of old photographs and a notebook of notes. The photographs showed the same woman from the diaries, but at different points in her life. In some images, she looked happy. In others, visibly frightened. The notebook contained detailed notes about bizarre experiments she claimed to be conducting. She mentioned attempts to communicate with the invisible and see beyond the veil. One of the last pages of the notebook brought a terrifying sentence. "He came. I don't know if I can stop him." This was written just a few days before her disappearance. Now, the family began to understand that the Watcher might not just be a person or even human. It could be something the woman had unknowingly summoned, something that was now tied to the house and its occupants. With the new discoveries from the basement, the family began to realize they were dealing with something much bigger than they had imagined. Perhaps the Watcher was an entity summoned by the woman from the diaries, something she couldn't control. The letters now seemed to reflect this theory. In one of them, he wrote, "She called me, but didn't know how to banish me. Now, I am part of you." This sentence sent chills down everyone's spines. Determined to find answers, they decided to consult experts in paranormal phenomena. They contacted a local group that investigated supernatural activities and scheduled a visit. When the group arrived, they began examining the energy of the house. Using sensitive equipment, they detected areas of residual energy, spots where traumatic or emotional events seemed to have left marks. One of these spots was exactly in the basement, where the family had found the diaries and the notebook of notes. The leader of the group explained that these energies could attract entities or even keep them trapped in the location. During the investigation, something strange happened. One of the surveillance cameras captured a shadow moving quickly down the hallway. It was something that had never been recorded before. Additionally, some members of the group reported hearing whispers in parts of the house where no one was present. The voices were indistinct, but they seemed to repeat words like "stay" and "silence." The Watcher, as if aware of the investigator's presence, sent another letter the next day. In it, he wrote, "You brought curious onlookers to see me, but I only speak to the chosen ones." This message made it clear that he had no intention of revealing his true nature to the newcomers. He seemed to be communicating only with the family, as if he had some special bond with them. The mother of the family, deeply shaken, decided to confront the Watcher directly. She wrote a letter back, asking why he was haunting them and what he wanted. To everyone's surprise, a response arrived a few days later. The letter said, "I am the guardian of this house. You are intruders. But if you prove your worth, perhaps I will spare you." This response sparked a series of debates within the family. What did prove your worth mean? Were they supposed to perform some kind of ritual or face a challenge? While discussing what to do, they began to notice subtle changes in the house. Objects that used to change places now stayed where they were left. The nighttime noises decreased. It seemed like the watcher was waiting to see what they would do next. Despite this brief truce, the tension remained high. The family knew they were being tested, but at the same time, they feared that any wrong move could result in terrible consequences. After receiving the letter where the watcher mentioned the need to prove your worth, the family entered a state of maximum alert. They knew they were dealing with something dangerous, but they also realized there was an opportunity to solve the mystery. The mother, who was already deeply involved in the situation, took the lead. She began researching ancient rituals and occult practices, trying to find something that could explain how to prove your worth to a supernatural entity. During her search, she found references to a ritual called offering to the guardian. This ritual required participants to offer something of great personal importance as a sign of respect and submission to the entity. With this in mind, the family gathered to discuss what they could offer. Each member thought of something that represented deep emotional value. The framed photograph mentioned earlier, a necklace passed down through generations, and even a personal diary. However, before they could perform the ritual, another letter arrived. This time, the watcher was more specific. "The proof is not material. You must face your own fears." This message left everyone stunned. How could they face their fears in a house that seemed full of dark secrets? It was as if the watcher was playing with them, forcing them to look within themselves. Determined to move forward, the family decided that each member would spend a night alone in different parts of the house. It would be a test of courage, and perhaps a way to prove their strength to the watcher. The first night was particularly difficult. The father chose to stay in the basement, where everything had begun. He felt a constant presence, as if something was breathing close to him in the darkness. Despite the fear, he endured until dawn. When he left the basement, he said he had felt something strange, as if he had been watched by something ancient and powerful, but that it now seemed less hostile. On the following night, it was the mother's turn. She chose the master bedroom where the letters used to be left. For hours, she heard whispers coming from nowhere, but she remained firm. When the sun rose, she felt an unexpected sense of relief. The children were the last to face the challenge. They decided to stay together in the living room, the place where the family used to gather to talk. Although they were teenagers and naturally frightened, their unity helped them overcome their fear. After the 3 nights, something changed in the house. The lights, which used to flicker randomly, remained stable. The doors, which used to open by themselves, stayed closed. It seemed like the watcher was evaluating their efforts. Then, a new letter arrived. In it, the watcher wrote, "You faced your fears, but you are not free yet. There is more to be revealed." This message brought both relief and concern. On one hand, it seemed the family had passed the initial test. On the other, the watcher remained an enigmatic and unpredictable presence. Now, they knew the mystery was far from over, but at the same time, they felt they had taken an important step toward the truth. The next challenge imposed by the watcher remained to be discovered. After the 3 nights of trials, the family began to feel a subtle change in the atmosphere of the house. Although the frightening events seemed to have diminished, there was a persistent feeling that something bigger was coming. The latest letter made this clear. "There is more to be revealed." These words echoed in everyone's minds, a constant reminder that the watcher wasn't finished with them yet. Determined to uncover the next step, they revisited all the clues they had found so far. The diaries, the notebook of notes, and even the old photographs were spread out on the living room table, as if piecing together a macabre puzzle. While examining the documents, they noticed something they had overlooked before. In one of the photographs, there was a strange mark engraved on one of the walls in the basement, a kind of geometric symbol that seemed to glow faintly under certain light. Curious, they returned to the basement to investigate. When they got there, they realized the mark was real, and it was located exactly where they had found the hidden box earlier. It was as if someone had deliberately left that mark there, waiting for it to be discovered. The symbol was intricate, with interwoven lines forming a pattern that seemed to pulse when stared at for too long. The mother had an idea. Perhaps it was some kind of code or message that needed to be deciphered. They began researching ancient and occult symbols. After hours of searching, they found a similar reference in a book about spiritual rituals. The symbol represented a door, a passage between worlds. This made the family start questioning whether the Watcher was really a physical entity or something that existed in another dimension. Perhaps he was using the house as a connection point between his world and theirs. Inspired by this new theory, they decided to perform another ritual. This time, they would use the symbol as a focus, trying to communicate directly with the Watcher to get answers. With candles positioned around the symbol and a protective circle drawn on the floor, the family began the ritual at midnight. They repeated simple words. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" To their surprise, something happened. The candle flames flickered violently, and a cold gust of wind swept through the basement, even though all the windows were closed. Then, a hoarse and distorted voice responded, "You opened the door. Now you must close it." This response was enigmatic but brought a new clue. It seemed that the Watcher's presence was linked to the opening of this door, perhaps by the woman from the diaries years ago. Now, it was up to the family to correct the past mistake. But how do you close something that's already open? They knew they needed more information. They decided to revisit the local historian who had helped them before, this time asking specifically about rituals to close portals. The historian, intrigued by the story, mentioned an ancient manuscript that talked about severing connections. He said the manuscript was kept in a museum a few towns away, but it could be consulted with special permission. Excited by this new possibility, the family began planning a trip to the museum. They knew it was a risk to leave the house, but they also understood it was necessary to solve the mystery. The Watcher, after all, seemed to be waiting for them to take the initiative. The decision to travel to the museum brought a mix of hope and apprehension. It was the first time the family had left the house since the events began, and they didn't know how the Watcher would react to their absence. Before leaving, they decided to leave him a letter. They wrote something simple but direct. "We're going after answers. If you want the door closed, you'll need to give us time." During the trip, everyone stayed alert for any strange signs. Noises in the car, shadows on the roads, or even the feeling of being followed. However, everything seemed normal, as if the Watcher was temporarily distant. When they arrived at the museum, they were greeted by a curator who had already been informed about their visit. He led them to a private room where the manuscript was kept. It was an ancient document, written in Latin and filled with mysterious symbols. With the help of a specialized translator, they began deciphering the content. The text talked about specific rituals to sever connections between worlds. Exactly what they needed. One of the most important passages mentioned that closing a door required 3 essential elements: a personal item from the original summoner, a symbolic sacrifice, and the repetition of specific words in Latin. The family realized they would have to return to the house to collect these elements. The personal item was likely something they had already found in the basement, perhaps the broken necklace or the notebook of notes. The symbolic sacrifice, according to the manuscript, could be represented by the voluntary renunciation of something valuable to each family member. This seemed to be a way to prove their commitment to correcting the past mistake. While discussing the next step, they noticed something strange happening at the museum. The lights began to flicker, and the air grew colder. It was as if the Watcher was aware of their presence there. Despite the discomfort, they continued examining the manuscript until they memorized the necessary words for the ritual. When they finally finished, they felt a sense of relief, but also a growing urgency to return to the house. During the trip back, something unexpected happened. They received a phone call from an unknown number. When they answered, they heard only one phrase, "You're getting closer." It was the Watcher's hoarse and distorted voice. This contact left everyone tense. It seemed like he was monitoring their movements, even far from the house. Was he trying to intimidate them or simply reminding them that time was running out? When they arrived home, they found something disturbing. The symbol in the basement had changed. Now it glowed intensely, as if responding to their presence. It was a clear reminder that the door was still open. Determined to solve the mystery once and for all, they began preparing the ritual. Each family member chose something to sacrifice, objects that had emotional value but that they were willing to give up for the greater good. Finally, they gathered all the necessary elements. The original summoner's personal item, the symbolic sacrifices, and the Latin words. They were ready to face the Watcher and end this terrifying connection. But they knew the ritual would be dangerous, and nothing guaranteed it would work. The night chosen for the ritual was one of the tensest the family had ever faced. They knew this was their chance to solve the mystery, or face terrible consequences if something went wrong. They prepared the basement as indicated in the manuscript. A protective circle drawn on the floor, candles positioned strategically, and the glowing symbol in the center. The atmosphere was charged with energy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Each family member brought their symbolic sacrifice. The father offered the watch he had inherited from his grandfather. The mother offered the broken necklace found in the basement. And the children left personal items that represented their most precious memories. It was proof that they were willing to give up something valuable to correct the past mistake. When everything was ready, they began reciting the Latin words. The phrases were melodic but also heavy, as if each word echoed through time and space. As the ritual progressed, the symbol on the floor began to glow even more intensely. The basement walls seemed to vibrate, and a cold wind blew, despite all the windows being closed. It was as if something was responding to the invocation. Suddenly, a dark figure began to take shape in the center of the circle. It was impossible to see details, only a shadowy silhouette that seemed to pulse with life. It was the Watcher, and he was there in front of them for the first time. The hoarse and distorted voice resonated through the basement. "You've come this far, but do you have enough courage to finish?" This question hung in the air like a final challenge. The family hesitated for a moment, but soon continued reciting the words from the manuscript. They knew they couldn't stop now. The Watcher seemed to be testing their determination, trying to intimidate them before the final act. As the last words were spoken, the symbol on the floor began to emit a blinding light. It seemed like the door was starting to close. The Watcher let out a sharp scream, as if being sucked into another place. The tension was palpable. Everyone felt an invisible force pulling them toward the symbol, as if the house's very energy was trying to swallow them. But they remained firm within the protective circle. Then suddenly, everything stopped. The glow of the symbol disappeared. The wind ceased, and silence filled the basement. The Watcher was gone. The family stood motionless for a few minutes, unsure if the ritual had worked or if the Watcher was simply waiting for the right moment to return. As they left the basement, they noticed something had changed in the house. The heavy atmosphere that had accompanied them since the beginning had disappeared. The doors and windows remained closed, and no strange noises could be heard. Although relieved, everyone knew they could never forget what they had been through. The Watcher might have been banished, but the experience left deep marks on each of them. However, one last question remained. Had they truly closed the door forever? Or had they merely delayed the inevitable? After all, the Watcher never explained why he had been summoned or why he had chosen that house. After the ritual, the family tried to return to their normal lives. At first, everything seemed genuinely different. The house, once filled with tension and fear, now seemed like an ordinary home, at least on the surface. But as the days passed, small details began to emerge. Objects they swore they had stored in one place appeared in another. Light sounds, almost imperceptible, echoed through the hallways at night. Despite these occurrences, nothing was as frightening as before. It was as if the Watcher was sending subtle signals, reminding them that he still existed, but without causing panic. The mother began researching the topic further, reading books about paranormal phenomena and dimensional portals. She discovered that, in many cases, these entities never completely disappear. They simply become dormant, waiting for the right moment to return. This thought left everyone uneasy. Had they merely postponed the inevitable? Or had the ritual really worked, and those small signs were just remnants of residual energy? Determined not to let fear take over again, they decided to turn the experience into something positive. They began documenting everything they had lived through, from the first letters to the final ritual. This documentation was shared with paranormal phenomenon experts, historians, and even other residents of the area. They wanted to warn people about the potential dangers of meddling with unknown forces. The story quickly gained local notoriety, becoming a case studied by paranormal investigation groups. Many visited the house, but none reported experiences as intense as those lived by the family. Although the fame brought curiosity and attention, the family preferred to stay away from the spotlight. For them, the most important thing was to move forward, learning from what they had been through. Over time, they realized that the experience had changed each of them profoundly. Learning, resilience, and unity were the most valuable lessons they took from it all. Today, years later, the house still stands, and the family still lives there. They know there will always be a part of their story tied to the mystery of the Watcher, but they've learned to live with it. Perhaps, on some level, they understand that certain mysteries will never be fully solved. And sometimes, it's better to accept the unknown than to try to control it. This story serves as a powerful reminder. There are forces in the world that go beyond our understanding. Meddling with the unknown can bring unpredictable consequences, and the true challenge lies in facing our own fears while seeking answers. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about unexplained mysteries like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here, we explore real stories and urban legends that will leave you sleepless, and maybe even questioning what lies beyond our world. So, what do you think? Was the Watcher really banished forever? Or is he still out there watching, waiting? Leave your opinion in the comments and share this video with your friends. Until the next story.